Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. I've got the other one over there as well. 3 quick pieces for us here to show. We've got Melissa Lantsman calling Mark Carney a lemon. It's great. The president of the Treasury Board, Shafkat Ali, gets humiliated on the House of Commons floor by Andrew Lawton. It's fun. And then Cheryl Gallant, someone we don't show on here very often. She reminds me of Mark Delahunty, but she has a hysterical speech making fun of the actions of Carney and how much he's screwing up the Canadian economy. She calls him right out. Let's get into it.
Let's say you're going to buy a car. These days, there are hundreds of options if you want to get a new vehicle. You can shop on all sorts of sites online. You can go to a new car dealership. You can go to a used car dealership. You can even go to Facebook Marketplace and find your new set of wheels right there. But wherever you buy that, you're protected by the government and the laws passed in our parliaments. If your car's a clunker, if it doesn't work, if it breaks as soon as you put your keys in the ignition, then you can get your money back. And we call these lemon laws. The premise of these laws is pretty simple. If somebody lies to you, if you get scammed by some slimy snake oil salesman, then you shouldn't have to be stuck with your brand new hunk of junk. Well, with each passing day, Canadians are wishing more and more that we had a lemon law for our Liberal politicians here in Ottawa.
A new report just into our newsroom is revealing how much more Canadians are paying for food. The average family of 4 will spend more than $800 more on food this year.
They sold Canadians on a bunch of grand promises that would make even the greasiest used car salesman blush.
In the mandate letter released today to Canada's ministry, I encourage my colleagues that we can more than meet our challenges with energy and ambition.
We were going to get a bright red law, the one with leather seats and a V8 engine and the top that folds down in the summertime. And instead, we got 5 miles down the highway and the facade just completely fell off. For instance, the Prime Minister promised during the election campaign that he would spend less so that Canadians could invest more. In just 6 months, he's managed to spend over 60% more money than even Justin Trudeau did, who, by the way, spent more money than all prime ministers combined.
There's diversifying trade abroad. That we're actively doing that. That will take time to build up, as you recognize in your question. We're going to double the pace of home building in this economy. We're looking at major projects that build out energy corridor, trade corridors, AI, other elements of our economy. Again, building infrastructure at a pace and a scale that we haven't done for generations.
But instead of scrapping Liberal laws and taxes and red tape to prevented construction, he took 6 months to build another bureaucracy, giving fake approvals to projects that have already been underway for years, while shutting down a new pipeline when he told just about everybody that he'd say yes. He promised 500,000 new homes, and the biggest new home building initiative since the Second World War. So by Liberal logic, what did that mean? Well, it meant establishing a 4th housing bureaucracy that he thinks is going to work when the first 3 bureaucracies delivered us home prices that doubled in just 10 years. The newest shiny thing in Liberal land is going to spend $13 billion to give us, wait for it, 4,000 homes. And on 500,000, that's a rounding error. The list keeps going on. The Prime Minister promised us a red-hot, roaring economy, the fastest-growing one in the G7. And instead, we lost nearly 100,000 jobs and we got the fastest-shrinking economy in the G7. That's while we still face tariffs from the U.S. on essential goods, companies and jobs that keep flowing south, and our standard of living approaches one that we haven't seen in decades. And what about crime? We've all seen the state of our Canadian streets. Crime and chaos reign supreme as the Liberal bail system churns out repeat violent offenders back into our communities. Peaceful neighborhoods are getting shot up. People's cars are getting stolen, not just once, but 2 or 3 times. Random assaults, violent break-and-enters, gang warfare. They're just part of everyday life here now in the country, and people are tired of it. But this Prime Minister won't do anything about it. He says that the fixes are coming soon, but with each passing day, he doesn't act, and more violent criminals reoffend, and innocent Canadians pay the price. We shouldn't be surprised, though. The guy in charge of the Justice Ministry is the same guy who broke our immigration system and then our housing market under Justin Trudeau. And that's another broken promise. Mark Carney said that he was a different kind of liberal who would bring a new approach to Ottawa. But he kept 13 of Trudeau's incompetent ministers, including Sean Fraser and Krista Freeland and Melanie Joly, and the list goes on and on. We've had a half a year of this prime minister, and clearly he hasn't come through on his promises. If we have a lemon law for our used cars, then we should have a lemon law for our prime minister too. Mark Carney's broken promises have real costs for Canadians and higher taxes and higher inflation and unsafe streets and record unemployment. Imagine if we can return this prime minister with your very own lemon law and turn lemons into lemonades and give Canadians the leadership that they deserve. A leadership that's going to lower your taxes and make sure that you can work hard and get ahead again in this country.
Oh, yeah.
So we are focused in spending less and investing more and finding those savings to reassign those resources where it matters most to Canadians. And that's why we launched comprehensive expenditure review, where we'll be balancing our operational budget in next 3 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South, about 45 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't even need that much time. The President of the Treasury Board said the government is spending less to invest more. The Prime Minister said the deficit would be capped at $72 billion, but this budget has it at $78 billion. So is 78 more or less than 62?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board. Order. Order.
I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. The new government was elected on the mandate to spend less and invest more and to build the strongest economy in the G7, and that's exactly we are focused on. Budget 2025 is focused in delivering investments in our Canadian Armed Forces, in infrastructure and housing, which means massive opportunities of jobs and growth of our economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South, on a point of order.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. There was some noise here. I don't believe the President of the Treasury Board heard the question. It's is 78 more or less than 62?
Order. That's clearly a matter of debate. The honourable member for Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise on behalf of the right all along people of Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke. I'd like to begin by congratulating my Liberal colleagues on their resilience to be able to eat such a huge slice of humble pie and not choke on their own hypocrisy is impressive. Nearly half this omnibus budget bill is just repealing Trudeau-era policies. For my colleagues across the aisle to have to admit to being wrong about so much without showing a single sign of humility really speaks to the resilience of the Liberal arrogance. They admit they were wrong about the consumer carbon tax, the boat tax, the digital services tax, the capital gains tax, and more. Yet they still swagger into this chamber with the absolute confidence that this time they're right. This time they know what's best for Canada's economy. And based on that 600-page budget implementation bill, what the Prime Minister thinks is best are massive piles of corporate welfare. Here's one example from page 3 of the budget bill. Quote, providing a refundable investment tax credit to qualifying corporations and trusts for investments in certain clean electricity property, end quote. If any Canadians watching are wondering who the biggest investor in clean electricity is, I'll give you a hint. It starts with Brook and ends with Field. Last year, the clean electricity tax credit cost the Treasury $22 million. This year, the tax credit will cost $1.5 billion. Next year, it will cost $3.8 billion. And by 2028, the government projects it will cost $7.2 billion. That's 328 times what it cost last year for just one tax credit. That will mostly flow to one company, Brookfield. But wait, there's more. Take the Canada Infrastructure Bank. this budget is giving it $15 billion more. Maybe it's just a coincidence that the clerk of the Privy Council was the former head of the Infrastructure Bank. They're increasing the funding despite its failure to achieve its goal of using public money to attract private investment. Now, we know the bank failed because the government keeps on telling us it failed. Every Liberal budget has acknowledged the lack of private investment and the damage it's doing to our productivity. The Infrastructure Bank failed so spectacularly that the Liberals created the Canada Growth Fund with the identical mandate of using public money to attract private investment. Now, in an act of corporate synergy that would make McKinsey proud, the Brookfield government is leveraging the Canada Growth Fund to catalyze the Clean Electricity Fund. In plain human language, they're giving companies such as Brookfield cash handouts from the Growth Fund, then allowing the companies to get tax credits for the spending handouts. Companies like Brookfield will get a shiny new asset to put on their balance sheet and a little spending money on the side. Wow. Canadians get a bigger tax bill and higher electricity prices. Now, I don't need a crystal ball to tell you this is going to fail to increase economic productivity. It won't leverage or catalyze or spur any private investment. It will destroy private investment. If there was a real business case, it wouldn't need subsidies. That means any investment it attracts comes at the expense of real opportunities for growth. That's just not a fact, it's a basic physical reality. The Brookfield government can try to ignore reality, but eventually it'll hit you like a freight train. Unfortunately, for anyone who owns property between Quebec City and Toronto, this government plans to hit you with a high-speed train. Justin Trudeau launched the largest expropriation of private property in Canadian history with his gun grab. Now, even that legacy isn't safe. Buried in this budget bill is the biggest land grab in a century. Canadians might be shocked to learn that when this bill passes, the high-speed rail line from Quebec City to Toronto will be automatically approved. They don't know where the rail line will be built, but it's already approved. If your home is in the way, they'll expropriate it. They just need to delete sections 8 through 12 of the Expropriation Act to get it done. In fact, they're so confident that in pre-approving the rail line without knowing the actual route that the government is amending the Transportation Act to remove the ability of the government to amend the approval. I want to remind Canadians that half this bill is the government repealing decisions made by the Liberal government. Now they want to tie their hands to prevent any future government from correcting this mistake. There is a big difference between cutting red tape and throwing all the tape out the window. And if any of this sounds out of character from the tape-happy Liberal Party, don't worry. They return to form on the next page of the legislation. Again, with this bill, the entire speed rail line is approved automatically and without an actual route. Then this bill states that the entire rail line is exempt from the dreaded unconstitutional Impact Assessment Act. However, each segment of the rail line is subject to the Impact Assessment Act. We can see where this is going because we've seen it all before. Once they determine the route, they will begin expropriating the land. Then they'll find a turtle or a frog on the land. The activists and proud socialists will demand the Liberals adjust the segment of the line. If it's a Liberal riding, the line will move. If it's a Conservative riding, they'll plow through. In the end, the government will have to take some other people's land, and those who were needlessly expropriated will just have to watch from the sidelines. For a while now, I've wondered how this government was going to hit the ridiculous target of restoring 30% of Canada's developed lands to nature by 2030. One way would be to cut a straight line through the most developed and expensive lands in Canada, claiming it is for high-speed rail, then killing the entire project by blaming some turtles trying to win the Darwin Prize. But, Mr. Speaker, I said earlier, I don't need a crystal ball because I have a history book. We've seen this all before. In 1972, Pierre Trudeau expropriated farmland in Pickering to build an airport. By 1975, the airport plan was on hold. The government kept the land and in January of this year announced there would be no airport, but the lands would go to Parks Canada to be included in the Rouge National Park. This bill makes the Pickering land grab look like a picnic. This budget gives the unnamed rail corporation the power to issue stop work orders on any land it thinks it may need for the rail line. And once it puts your property on the maybe list, it'll have the first right of refusal for any sale. The rail corporation will have the right to issue stop work orders on any activity on your land, and the corporation will have the right to go onto your property at any time to ensure the work has stopped. In a normal expropriation, you receive a notice of intent. Then you have the option to object and a public hearing is held. Now, you'll receive the notice and still be able to object, but there will be no hearing. And the final decision will be made by the minister behind closed doors. Now, some Canadians listening to all this will think it has the makings of a Second Pacific railway scandal. And that would be delicious irony to fall on the party that gleefully tossed Sir John A. Macdonald down the memory hole. But erasing history has its consequences. If one of those consequences is the Liberals sleepwalking into another sponsorship-size scandal, then I'm sure Sir John A. is smiling down on us. And while I would relish the Liberals paying a steep price for their arrogance, we also know from history what happens. They'll just walk off into the sunset of a corner office in a fancy law firm or a boardroom. It'll be Canadians who are forced to pay the higher taxes to the bondholders. It'll be Canadians who are forced off their lands during a housing crisis. It'll be Canadians who lose the farm their family owned for generations. When Liberals promise you a generational change, hide your wallets and lock your doors. This budget cuts benefits to veterans and students. It lays off frontline workers. All that plus billions in new debt for the biggest corporate welfare spending spree in history. The Mackenzie King government ran up deficits to fight the Nazis. The Harper government ran up deficits to fight the global financial crisis. The Trudeau government ran up deficits to fight a global pandemic. This Brookfield government is running up deficits to reward its wealthy backers. Canadians can't afford this takeover of their democracy. We need an affordable conservative government now.
Well done. Oh, yeah.
We'll wrap it up right there, gang. Hope you enjoyed the video. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. Get your Canadian federal politics right here. Thank you for watching this video. We'll catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.